All right, this is identifying the key features. I'm going to give you 2 problems, and then you'll do the other 4 by yourself. So to help you out with this, let's just get into it. Question number 20 on the go. It wants you to identify some key features. Again, be mindful. It wants you to identify the vertex, the line of symmetry, the number of intercepts, and minimum or maximum. So that number is important when we get down to part C. All right, so diving into it. Where is the vertex? The vertex is where we meet in the middle. So 10 and nothing, 3 and nothing, -2, -2, -5, and we meet in the middle. So the vertex is 0, -6. The line of symmetry, you have to remember the line of symmetry and the x value of the vertex. Again, the line of symmetry and the x value of the vertex are the same, so x is equal to 0. I have A and B. The number of the number of x-intercepts. C and D are going to be done by doodling. I'm going to doodle over here off on the left, and if you were to look at my book, I doodled for every single problem. And what did I doodle? The first thing I doodled was the x-intercept. Right? It's just a small graph to help me and make sure I can visually see what's going on. So I doodle that. What else do I doodle? I doodle a point above or below that vertex in my table to tell me whether that graph opens up or opens down. So -1 and -5, and it's tough to see. I'm going to try and draw in another color. -1 and -5 is right there. So since it is above my vertex, I know my graph opens up, and my graph would look something like that. I don't need to plot every point exactly, because all I need to know is how many x-intercepts is it going to have. And in this case, I know I'm going to end up with 2. And is it going to be a minimum or maximum? The other thing the little doodling graph does is allow me to see that this is going to be a minimum. All right, so there's that one. Rewind that if you need to. The next one, I hope my board doesn't give me problems about this. The next one here, there's a lot of different things going on. All right, it wants you to find a lot of different things over here in these blank boxes. So we're going to identify what they are. The first thing it's pointing to is, a lot of students didn't guess this, but the first thing it's pointing to is it's pointing to the y-intercept. All right, in this case, the y-intercept is 0, 0. The next thing it's pointing to, if you notice it's pointing to 2 things, is the x-intercept. And the x-intercept is going to be 0 and 0 also, as well as 6 and 0. That's my x-intercepts. The next thing it points to is this line, which is basically in the middle of my parabola, which is my line of symmetry, which in this case, remember, if I don't know what it is and I can't see that it's a 3, I can go back and look at my vertex. Well, wait, I haven't identified what my vertex is yet. So, by identifying that line of symmetry as x equals 3, I know that when I get to my vertex, I don't even have to know what the other part of my vertex is, the output value. I know the input better be 3. 3 and -9, no problem. The next thing it wants to know is vertex form. Well, remember, vertex form, I have to know A, H, and K. I already know H and K. H is 3, not -3, it's +3. I went over +3 and down 9. Okay? So there's my H and K. What is my A value? The simplest way I can explain to you and re-explain and re-explain and re-explain as to how to do this is to put your pencil on the vertex and move right 1 or left 1. I don't care what you do. Do this. Follow this with me. This will make so much sense when you do this. Move right or left 1. Now that you've moved right or left 1, how far up do you have to go to get to your parabola? I have to go up 1. That means my A value is 1. So now I can write my equation, f of x equals 1, which we don't write, x minus 3 squared. And you're going, wait a second, h is positive. You're absolutely right. But remember, when the graph shifts to the right, it's x minus. When it shifts to the left, it's x plus, and then -9. There's my equation for that. Domain and range. Domain and range are x values. Domain is x values. So that vertical line along my function here, my domain, is going to be -infinity to +infinity. Right? Where does it start? Well, it goes up and continues to go left, comes down, goes back up, continues to go right. So -infinity, +infinity. My range is always going to be my y values. Where does my horizontal line first start to touch it? It starts it at -9, which would actually be a bracket, and then it goes up to infinity. Okay? This is something we didn't cover, so if you're not, well, we haven't yet, we did in class, but if you weren't here, you're not going to see this. Positive intervals, negative intervals. This is not something that's difficult. I always look at my x-axis to get my numbers for this, but anything above the x-axis, which I will highlight right here, is going to be a positive interval because anything above it is positive, anything below it is negative. So now I just look at it as intervals. Intervals is always x values. So negative infinity to 0, and this is all just parentheses, and then it's going to stop because it's going to go negative and negative and come back to positive, 6 to infinity. There's my positive intervals. My negative intervals are actually going to be my two numbers right here. It's going to be the bottom part down here. It's going to be the part below the x-axis, which if I look up here, I can see is 0 and 6. Done. All right? Now we talk about increasing interval and decreasing interval. Okay, so where does this graph increase and where does it decrease? Well, right here is the division line. That axis of symmetry ends up being my division line. It's increasing on the interval of 3 to infinity. So 3 to positive infinity, because from 3 there, think about it, the roller coaster, you're going back up, that's the cruddy part of the ride, right, because you're sitting there waiting. The decreasing part is the fun part, where you're going down and making funny faces and getting funny pictures taken, right? So that's going to be the opposite. It's going to be negative infinity to positive 3. There you go. So make sure you get those others completed and ask questions as needed, all right?